There comes a time in game balance where you get sick of the same thing, so you add a type that no one asked for but everybody was happy about. And that's what the fairy type is. Nobody thought that a new typing was ever going to appear after it had been years since it ever did. Pokemon definitely needed, at the time when Generation 6 came out, a fresh coat of paint. It was moving to the 3DS, and a lot of people were pretty upset with Generation 5, even though it was very good story-wise. It wasn't as popular as the other generations before it. And then Gen 6 came out, and they knew they had to make a splash. And they added Mega Evolutions, and they added the Fairy typing, which countered a lot of types that we had seen all the time. And that's kind of where it all came from and the reason why it was there. And it ended up being really successful. Generation 6 was way more successful than Generation 5. It brought a lot of people back to Pokemon who either didn't play Generation 5 or played Black and White and then didn't play Black 2 and White 2 because they felt like they were kind of sick of Gen 5. And that's exactly what Generation 6 did, and it did it successfully. And that's why we're going to talk about fairy types today, because it was a type that they added, and they even gave it to older generation Pokemon. So every single Pokemon, every single generation on this list should have a fairy type on it, which is pretty cool. Let's get started, shall we? Our choices are Clefable, Wigglytuff, or Mr. Mime. I'm going to go with Mr. Mime. Clefable is probably an overall better Pokemon. The problem with Clefable is that it just doesn't really get all that strong. I would rather hit you harder than slowly whittle you down. And if I have the choice between the two, I go Mr. Mime every time. And I think Mr. Mime just got better offensively adding the fairy type. Again, no one asked for this thing to be a fairy type. It's almost like they went through all of the Pokemon and they said, oh, this Pokemon's pink, we'll give him the fairy type. There's going to be a lot of pink Pokemon on this list. Matter of fact, I think every fairy Pokemon is pink. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm right. I think I might be right on that. I don't know for sure, but I think they're all pink. Regardless, they literally looked at every single pink Generation 1 Pokemon and they said, you get fairy typing. That's what happened. That's what happened. But yeah, Mr. Mime's the answer. Gen 2. Okay, not all of these are pink. Oh, fraud allegations in the comments right now. Call me a fraud. If you made it this far in the video, call me a fraud in the comments. And they might get flagged by spam, but I don't care. I'll prove all of them. Azumarill is one of my favorite Pokemon and one of the best they've ever made. It is so underrated. It is so underrated. Huge power for its ability. Gives it an attacking stat worthy of a strong Pokemon, but yet it's a bulky defensive Pokemon that also hits you really hard. Adding the fairy type gave it Play Rough as an ability, gave it Play Rough, as well as many other offensive abilities that it didn't have previously as a water type. Not to mention, it resurfaced in Gen 6 because of the fairy type, and this was a time after this physical special split. No one was really using this in Black and White or in Diamond and Pearl, but they were using it in Generation 6 because that fairy typing and that physical special split helped it so much. Made Huge Power that much better. Azumarill is one of the best Pokemon ever made in my personal opinion, and it's definitely the best fairy type of Generation 2. Alright, obvious answer. I mean, Mawile is the most disappointing Pokemon ever designed. And I said that when I did the ugliest Pokemon. I said that when I did the worst Pokemon. I hate Mawile. I think it's a terrible Pokemon. I think it's one of the worst designs. Everyone continuously went in the comments and said, but Mawile's great. But Mega Mawile was so good competitively. But this, that, and the other. But this, that, and the other. I still think it's trash. You can't convince me. But you know what? Gardevoir's a great Pokemon. Great Pokemon. Let me sing some praises for a minute. This is a positive video, right? We got to get some positive vibes in here. Gardevoir's great. I do think the Gardevoir's great. I also, at the same time, think that it's the only option I really have here. So, at the end of the day, there's that as well. Okay. Obviously, those are our only options. They didn't add any Pokemon that could potentially be fairy types in Generation 4, so they didn't add it to any fairy types in Generation 4, which is fine. I'm worried we're going to see the same thing in Generation 5, though. We are. Because the only Pokemon they gave it to was Whimsicott, which is not a good Pokemon, and I didn't think it was going to be on this list today, but you know what it is? It is. You know what? It is. I am talking so fast. You guys have no idea how fast I'm talking. I am legitimately, in a zone right now, and I'm talking so fast, and I apologize if you can't understand me. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Because you can look at the list and know what's going on. And maybe if you turn the subtitles on, I don't know if they'll pick up the words that I'm saying, but I hope they do. I hope they do. Okay, now we got some options. Because this was a generation when Fairy type was introduced here in Generation 6, right? And because of that, they added a whole bunch of Pokemon and gave them Fairy typing. And there's some good ones in here. I think Florges is pretty good, okay? I think that Aromatisse is terrible. I think that Slurpuff is terrible. And I think that Klefki is one of the worst designs ever made. But it's still the best. Klefki, people were judging the Generation 4 designs a little too much. Or sorry, the Generation 6 designs a little too much. They do understand that in Generation 5, we literally had a garbage Pokemon, right? A Pokemon that was just possessed trash. I don't mind a set of keys. It's a set of keys that are possessed. Maybe you could have argued that this should have been a ghost type, just like how Aegislash was a sword that was possessed. I think that might have made a little bit more sense. But they made it a Fairy type, and it was a really good Pokemon for a long time. So you really can't complain here, can you? Gen 7. I want it to be Primarina or Mimikyu, but I can't decide. I'm going to give it to Mimikyu. To have an ability that is Substitute and still be able to use Substitute is pretty broken. It was a really, really cool Pokemon when it was first introduced. I didn't give it credit in my Ghost type video because there was something better, but I legitimately think that Mimikyu is really iconic. And, it's probably the best option here. It's as I'm yawning because I yawn in every single video that I make. And if you don't hear them, I guess that I'm doing it the right way. But, I mean, I like Primarina. I just think Mimikyu is better. You can do more things with it because of how gimmicky it is. Generation 8. I mean, it's Grimmsnarl. It's obviously Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl being both Dark and Fairy is amazing. I gave you a whole spiel in my Dark type video. I'll give you a small version of it now. The fact that you can give this thing both Dark type and Fairy type moves because it has both typings gives you so much type coverage. Not to mention extra resistances are added because of the Fairy typing as well, which makes a huge difference. I think Grimmsnarl is just really good. He does a lot of really good things for you, and he gets Nasty Plot just to make it even better. Generation 9. I talked about this Pokemon just a video ago. Tinkaton is just really good. Tinkaton is quite literally a monster. That's what it is at the end of the day. That is what Tinkaton is. Gigaton Hammer is just incredibly strong. And I don't know if they've made a better Fairy type than that. Who am I kidding? Yeah, they have. The answer of what the best is... You guys are going to really hate me for this. But I feel like I'm torn between almost every single one. Okay? And I've got this in my radio, my ASMR voice here, because I'm going to be very gentle with you as I tell you that the choice that I'm obviously going to be making is Whimsicott. And here's why. No, I'm not going to do Whimsicott. Who did you think I was? Gardevoir is the answer. Gardevoir is the answer. It's quite simple. It's one of the strongest Pokemon ever made. It has always been one of the best Psychic types in the game, and then they gave it Fairy typing, which gave it even more offensive power. Need I say anything else? No, of course not. Of course not. That's going to do it for the video. We're going to talk about some starter Pokemon coming up, and I will see you all when that video comes out.